welcome to the Artist Behind the Music UK series. Today we have Vern Asbury joining us all the way from across the pond. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me on. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
Yep, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad, aside from the obvious sort of, pandemic bedlam. But yeah, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. In the middle of a move as well, so things are a bit chaotic, but we're soldiering on just about.
The pandemic move. That is something that's ambitious.
It is. It is. I think, there's a lot of people wanting to move at the moment and just really boiling things down to see exactly what it is they need or don't need, and where we're going to be moving to. It's just up the road, but it's just it's got a bit more space, and we don't currently have an access to a garden, so just having a bit of our own kind of space is going to be great. And it's got a garage as well, which could be pretty useful for like just playing a bit of music or a bit of pool or something. So yeah, it's kind of geared up to the lockdown experience, so yeah, but you're quite right. Moving at the moment is kind of asking for trouble, really. But if not now, then when? So
That's right. I like to look at life like that. Why wait, right? Do what you
yeah
in the present moment. Big fan of that for sure.
yeah definitely.
Cool. Well, let's dive into who you are and music and how you got started in music. Kind of what was the tipping point that really made you see that music was your life and what you wanted to follow?
Yeah, I think I've been into music or interested in music from a very, very young age. I grew up in a house where there was lots of music being played in terms of on the record player. Both my parents were sort of into some pretty cool stuff, actually, like, sort of 60s and 70s stuff. Some pretty cheesy stuff too, as is of the era. And then once I got a little bit older, I sort of inherited my brother's music taste. He's like 7 years older than me, so the natural thing for a younger sibling is to kind of want to copy the older sibling. And he felt so much older and was doing all these sort of cool things like going out of the house on his own and and listening to some great bands of really the late 80s, early 90s. And so I kind of borrowed a lot of those tastes and influences rather than discovering music for myself, really, if you want. So yeah, I think music's always been in the blood since very early on. And then through that, there were a couple of sort of cheapy acoustic guitars kicking around the house from an early age, but no one really played as such. Yeah, just sort of strumming around and making drum beats on like pots and pans with my brother and stuff like that. And then eventually, I was very lucky and got some guitar lessons when I was 9, and then I haven't really looked back. I've learned guitar for about 6 years, some classical Spanish guitar, which was as scary as it was amazing. The teacher was an incredibly interesting, influential guy, but it was a situation, if you didn't practice, you kind of feel the fear of God next lesson. So so it was very much,
I can never decide if that's a good thing or a bad thing when teachers are so harsh on
yeah
I'm more like, oh, whatever, just have fun, but make sure you're trying.
it's a fine line, isn't it? It's a fine line, and parentally, it's a fine line of, ultimately you got to let your kids do what they want to do, and enjoy themselves ultimately. But there's a little bit of a push and a little bit of drive is probably healthy, but you don't want to be one of those parents who's kind of like, in sports terms, on the side of the soccer field, sort of like shouting at your child saying, "You've got to start scoring some bloody goals," and the same with music. My parents didn't give me a hard time at all about it. They just said, do what you want to do. But going to a teacher was a different kind of thing. So I'm now very, very thankful for that kind of level of pressure, really. It spurred me on, and also it was, I guess stylistically, it was a style of music. Classical guitar was something far away from what really drove me on and wanted to make me play guitar in the first place, which is sort of guitar, rock and roll bands like, you know, the Who and you know, the Kings, the Stones, and from Canada actually Neil Young, a big sort of, you know, lots of those sort of records playing around and made me want to play guitar and get into that rock and roll thing. But yeah, aside from that was the classical thing. So it was almost a bit of a division down the middle of, well, I can pop that there, and I know that if I sort of learn a bit there, I might be able to nick a bit of that and pull it into the rock and roll at some point. So that's just reminded me, actually. I remember once bringing my teacher a book of Jimi Hendrix tabs, you know, tab music, written down music for guitar, and you never believe it, it's a Colombian guy from Bogota, this like long flowing silver hair, and he'd never actually heard Jimi Hendrix, anything by Jimi Hendrix, you know. So he picked up this book and opened it and started to sort of sight read, and hearing someone sight read Jimi Hendrix without having heard it, all through the sort of filter of someone who's classically trained, is a weird experience. Very weird, but it certainly had a new angle, you know.
Totally. Which is
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really where it all came from. My folks and my brother, you know, got me into music from an early age, and then I think probably hitting around, you know, early teenage years, started to get into playing in bands, and we were also very lucky as a family. One of my dad's friends lent us his 4-track recording machine, you know, one of these big cassette to cassette deck things, you know, kind of a collector's item now. I'm not sure if you can get hold of them. It's massive kind of units. It looked like a pinball machine, not quite as big as that, but sort of like on two levels, you know. And we used to spend our weekends just mucking around on that, again, just, you know, plugging guitars in and banging sort of makeshift drums to make beats and stuff like that. And yeah, just, I think more than anything, apart from wanting to be a little show off generally, I think the recording aspect of music was what really excited me from an early age through those early 4-track recordings. And in fact before that, what we used to do was a very primitive form of multi-tracking. So we had a ghetto blaster, you know, like a tape deck thing. We'd record ourselves playing, and then we'd play it back whilst recording on another ghetto blaster. So we're getting ourselves playing over the top of effectively the backing track, and then we'd bounce it back and forth incrementally, all this tape hiss adding. So by the 5th or 6th bounce, you couldn't really hear anything apart from
Yeah.
It had a kind of a magic of its own, you know.
Totally.
But you can hear Ben in the background, his chiming in. Yeah, and then as I said, yeah, around about sort of 13, 14, 15, started to play in bands, and you know, didn't sort of chance my arm a bit at singing in those days, but my voice hadn't really broken yet, and didn't really have much confidence singing as well. I still don't have a hell of a lot of confidence as a singer as such, you know. It's always a bit of an alien thing to me to sing in a way. But yeah, over the years, sort of, for whatever reason, just got almost ushered into the position of being a front man in a band, you know, and being the guy who sang the songs, not necessarily by design, but that's
there are a lot of stories
how that.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
no one wants to sing. Well, you're the best, so.
yeah, absolutely, and you know, in subsequently in bands I've been in that have had sort of dedicated singers who are what I call, you know, proper singers, not like me, just sort of caterwauling away, but proper singers. It's always lovely, A, to hear someone do it properly, and B to concentrate on my playing as well, because, you know, when you sing and play an instrument at the same time, unless you're incredible like someone like Hendrix, you know, you could do everything all at once and effectively separate. You know, you could play rhythm and lead and then sing at the same time and do all these crazy things. Unless you're that on that level, you have to sacrifice a little bit of what you're putting into your instrument in order to deliver the vocal, or vice versa, you know. And to that extent, I think I'm probably most impressed with singing drummers. People, you know, drummers that can sing really well is the one, you know. Yeah, so, you know, obvious one that springs to mind is Phil Collins, who's just absolutely ridiculous drummer. Possibly gets a lot of stick for some of his cheesy stuff he did, but I really dig the early Genesis stuff in particular. And so, and you know, that sort of level of dexterity to be able to separate, you know, 4 limbs, all that independence, and then effectively to add an extra limb, if you want to call the voice a limb, probably not, on top. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. And Don Henley was pretty good at it now as well, in the Eagles.
The Eagles.
Yeah, same. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, those harmonies, just so ridiculous.
And song
ridiculous. Just too good.
Right?
I think any one of them could have been lead vocalist easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't happen often either in a band, which is beautiful.
100%. I'm not sure which documentary it is. You might have seen it if you're an Eagles fan. But there's a clip of them somewhere, and they're backstage just before they're about to go on, you know, and they're kind of standing in a circle, like a cappella, just working out a harmony for something, and it's just, I've never heard anything like it. It's so beautiful and tight and silky, and there's something about the delivery as well, you know, the accent, it just makes it gel and knit so well. You know, it blows on any kind of harmony work like that, like, you know, the Beach Boys, or
there's just something magical about it when voices come together and just create a voice of their own. It's so neat. Yeah. I saw the Fleet Foxes rather. Yeah.
And they had pretty amazing harmonies too. It just blows. I think seeing that live just blows my mind. You always think that, oh, they sound great on a record, but anyone can sound great on a record. Can they do it live? And yeah, it turns out they can. Always very impressive.
Yes, harmony. You know. I'm always blown away and inspired when I hear people singing harmonies. I love it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So meandered off there onto harmonies, and you know,
straight back to your journey.
I sung in a few bands, like, you know, as backing vocalist in a few bands, and lead vocalist in a couple that have had harmonies going. Nothing near that level of tightness, but it does add an extra dimension. I think from the point of view of the audience, seeing a band, especially, well, mainly the bands I played in have been quite loud, kind of rock and roll, really. And seeing that kind of, you know, bludgeoning power come out, and then you've got nice harmonies over the top, is always really, wow, okay, that's an extra thing. You know, it's one thing just to sort of thrash out something pretty coarse, but to have that on top is always the extra thing, I think.
It is. It's like the on the icing.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. So yeah, whereabouts to be up to? What would you like to know?
Yeah, well, let's dive into. So not only do you have your own original projects, but you also play as a session musician for other artists as well.
Yeah.
How do you find the difference of performing your own stuff to performing with other artists, and who are some of those other artists that you play with?
Yeah, I think I try to put the same, you know, the same energy into whatever I do creatively, you know. So I don't think there's any kind of real separation there. I think maybe the energy changes once I'm singing on something, because if it's got, you know, particularly lyrically, it adds something that's quite obviously personal, and gives it an identity. So I'd say that's really the division. But in terms of the playing part of it, you know, I'm sure you're the same. If you're doing something, then you're in that moment, and that's what you're doing. That's it. That's everything in that entire moment. It's quite meditative in a way. It's like
Have you seen
everything else can disappear. Have I seen the movie?
Soul? It's that new Disney Pixar movie.
Yeah, I can't watch anything for more than about 8 minutes without being distracted at the moment. I saw the start of it, and I'm not going to give whoever's watching this any spoilers, so don't worry about that. But yeah, so far so good.
But there's a moment in there about music and how it just takes you to another plane and another
Yeah.
and what you're saying right there is just reminding me of that feeling and that emotion of when you're in it, when you're playing, it's just that's all you're doing, and it just kind of stops the world around you.
I think it's really healthy as well in terms of, you know, being present in that moment. Lots of people have it through different ways, whether it's playing, you know, sport, or whether it's reading a book, or whether it's like playing an instrument, whatever it is, where you're entirely present in that moment. And particularly from a mental health perspective at the moment, it's so important to have those those focal points to get you away from the world at large, because it's pretty overwhelming and intimidating at the best of times, let alone now. So having that kind of output, something to channel into, where you kind of press pause and everything, is really, really important. I think just to stay sane, you know, more than anything else, it's so important. So yeah, I guess the likes of you and I are pretty lucky to have, you know, music to be able to do that. For sure. So yeah, it's certainly, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's there to serve any kind of situation, music, isn't it? It kind of, you know, you can channel anger into it, you can channel love into it, you know. I know, sounding like a proper hippie now, but you know.
I know, I'm all with you. I don't know if this is peace or this is peace, but
It's potentially something else in the UK, is it? That's why you turn it around.
I'm like, oh, I think I just did the wrong one.
I think we're all good. We're all good. Wars have started over less, but
so funny. I love it. Who are some of your highlighted artists that you've played with?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'd say, yeah, so the biggest success I've had as a session musician be playing on the last I played on a Lewis Capaldi single, Before You Go, which did really, really well last year. That's just been, you know, a cut above the rest in terms of how it's progressed and how much exposure it's got. And in fact, I've been working on Lewis's new album, which is going to be out sometime in 2021. I think he's going to be working on that in the coming weeks. I'm not sure when this is going out, by the way, but you know, for reference, this is the sort of start 2021 that we're talking now. So yeah, I've been working on that, and then some other artists I've worked with.
I have around that is, how would a session musician get involved with doing something like that? How did you have that experience open up for you?
I'd like to say it was something to do with talent, skill, hard work, maybe a bit of hard work, but as ever, I just got a bit of a lucky break in that I went to school with some guys, particularly one guy that I knew, he was very local to me, who had some success in the dance music industry in the sort of late 90s, early noughties, on the breakbeat scene. And then after that, he got into, with the same team of producers that were doing the dance stuff, got into doing sort of pop music production, really. And they had a couple of lucky breaks. I think they produced Professor Green's albums, the first thing they did, and then stratospherically have gone on to do some incredible things. They're called TMS, and they've done all sorts of things. And you know, maybe 10 odd years ago, I got in touch with my friend Fro, who was doing this stuff, and I said, you know, looks like you guys are doing amazingly well, you know, all these things coming out. Just to say, by the way, I still play guitar, and if you ever need guitars and anything, I'm here. Which is one of those things you always sort of feel a bit funny about sticking your neck out and about sort of trying to tout yourself out there. But ultimately, that's the only way anything ever really happens, right? Is just sort of, announcing yourself to people. I guess there's a slight fine line there as well with it becoming quite pushy.
But you do have to share what you do, and you do have to ask. If you don't put things out there, I'm glad you shared that story, because it's important to be confident enough in yourself, or just believe in yourself enough to tell people what you do, and to say, hey, if you need this, I'm here. I can help you out.
100%. That is really important to do that in anything at all. On this particular occasion, I think they had someone else who was doing guitars for them at the time, but they took a punt on me, and I did a couple of demos for them, and I think, and it seemed to work out. And I think there are 1 million, 2 million, 5 billion better guitarists out than me in the world, in Brighton, let alone the world. But maybe the one thing I did was, like in any business really, is you set out to achieve a goal, you deliver it, on time, you deliver what they want, and you work bloody hard, and that was my part of the bargain, and that seemed to go down well. And and many years down the line, we've got a great relationship, and it just so happens, they're really great guys who I'd chat to anyway. But yeah, it just so happens occasionally the phone goes and they say, oh, Vern, we've got a guitar, you want to do it? Okay. And a lot of the time I've been very lucky to be able to do that from home, as well, which has kind of served the whole lockdown situation. That's a positive to take out of it. There aren't really very many people have to shout about, but that's a positive that I've got, in that I could get some work done at home, in and around screaming kids and screaming me. But yeah. So yeah, and once in a blue moon I'll go into a fancy studio and do something, but more often than not it's from home, which maybe helps to sort of give that kind of, more of a bit of you in a way in a recording or a performance. Because as much as when you go into a studio and you're recording on fantastic gear and all the rest of it, and there's probably an element of pressure there, because if you're in a fancy studio, there's usually time and money involved, in the process. If you take those sort of things out of the picture a little bit, okay, you're still working to a deadline, but it's in your own environment. There's that, you're relaxed, and you do your own thing. And for whatever reason, that formula seems to have worked for some time. And yeah, I played on some Lewis stuff. There's one coming out this week actually from an artist called JC Stewart. He's Northern Irish, I believe, and he's been doing pretty well over here in the UK. I think released some releases internationally as well. And there's a team of writers behind what he's doing, who are sort of connected to the Lewis stuff as well. I think Niall Horan of One Direction co-wrote that song, and also Plested, who co-wrote Before You Go. So there's a bit of momentum there, and lots of the same names seem to be sort of cropping up, and Muggins here gets to play guitar quite often, which is I'm very lucky to do. Who else have I played for? Yeah, there was a record over here called You Deserve Better by James Arthur. I'm not sure if you guys, he's got any radio play over there in Canada. I know. Yeah, UK artist. And who else? Celeste, I played on one of her records recently. She's like an up and coming artist over here who's fantastic, and her debut album's coming out in February, I think. So lots of bits and bobs, and I also play on a hell of a lot of things, usually for TMS that will never see the light of day. So it'd be like a demo here, or a fully fledged song, which to my to my naive ears, it sounds absolutely fantastic. I mean, all these the productions are always just absolutely, you know, amazing, top notch, and more often than not the song too. But for whatever reason, sometimes these songs don't actually ever see the light of day, which is quite strange and eye-opening in a way. You know, if I had, you know, I'd be doing my utmost to release these songs if they were mine. But you know, maybe that's why I'm not a world famous star and they are. The music gods know what they're doing generally in terms of it's a business. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's the next sort of logical thing that I'd like to end up doing is not only to play on these records, but I'd like to write songs for other artists. I think that's kind of where I personally think my biggest strength is, although I haven't had the chance to get into that yet. It's the most elusive chicken and egg situation to become a professional songwriter, in terms of needing the credibility, if you want, of already having your writing credit down on a cut. And of course, if you haven't got that, first of all, then no one's going to take you seriously to be involved in the writing process of something else. So it's all about getting that first cut, and on that's kind of work in progress. But you know, it's hard work. And going back to my original point, it's also just a break and some luck. You know, same as anything, same as any business. You get your foot in that door once with something, and all of a sudden you're in, and all you got to do then is just make an effort not to balls it up and just work hard and do all the things we talked about, you know, do things on time and talk to people.
I mean, it's the
So,
same thing with songwriting as it is playing as a session musician or as an artist or whatever. It's just, you just have to keep doing it, I think, right? And just keep and keep putting things out there. And then as you do that, it's like different doors start opening. And when you start asking for things, things just start coming. And it's just a really good message, I think, to share right now is if you want something, just do it. Just go get it, you know?
100%. That sounds like really sound advice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that might be the thing for 2021, certainly from this end, is just to absolutely hammer it and do that. Just keep putting stuff out there.
Totally.
I think there's, you know, there have been some pretty big life distractions this end to prevent that from happening, and you know, just making ends meet and all the rest of it. But yeah, you're quite right. Just put the intention. Oh, hello. Just put the intention there and the application in, and just keep going and just keep going. Because you know what it's like in the music industry, especially. I think in terms of knockbacks versus kind of success, it would be kind of massively tilted in favor of the knockbacks. It's people saying nah, or just getting so far and then suddenly something falls flat. You know, and then of course there'll be the one sort of thing that sort of takes off and is all singing and all dancing, which is the thing you shout about typically on social media. But you know, I think you've got to be pretty thick-skinned and resilient, just because, you know, if you take the naysaying or just the sort of, you know, the failures is the wrong word, but the things that never sort of come to fruition to heart, then I think you wouldn't really have the mental capacity or the heart to keep on going. So you just gotta keep going, and I think you just got to work hard, haven't you? You know, it's an obvious thing to say, but if you're not prepared to put the work in, you can forget it, I think.
It's like a filtration system, right? Like if you can handle the no's, if you can handle the work, if you can handle the pressure, just keep going. And it's really all that you need to do is just don't quit. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what makes success and maybe not success, depending on what it is for you, right? So I think that
definitely, spot on. So you know, coming into a new year, lots of new aspirations and new projects to get excited about. I think, you know, I think when the seasons change as well, that gives you such a massive lift. Let alone what's going on in the world at large. But I tend to find that I'm not sure how you feel, but when it starts to get a bit darker and a bit colder, I feel much more creative. Actually, I'm bursting at the seams of ideas at the moment. So it's kind of been quite a good period of time for like that, and you know, and then spring comes, and then I think, you know, you just want to get it out there, right? Maybe not so much in terms of live music for a while, but
a while, but yeah, I agree with you on that. It's like 2020 kind of felt like a year of retreating, coming back to your center, your authenticity, your values. What is it that you need for survival? And then passion and joy, what brings joy to your life, I think is
yeah,
a lot of focus was last year. And then this year is like, it's like the butterfly, right? Cocooning itself and, you know, figuring things out. And now the butterfly is going to start to open and fly wherever you want to fly.
100%.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
that's so true.
I love it.
That is so true.
Play if you want to whip out your guitar.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Here's a guitar. You got any cats? Any kids want to join in? Okay. See, it's in tune. That'll do. Okay. Well, I'll play you a song that I wrote a while ago, and it's called "Thank You Letter." And it's about a story I made up in my head about a teacher who ends up receiving anonymously a thank you letter when they retired, and it's actually from an ex-student who, because of the inspiration of that teacher, has then gone on to be this astronaut who goes off to Mars. This kind of wacky fiction that I had going on in my head. And yeah, and yeah, I think the message is, you know, just being grateful as well. So, you know, perhaps I shouldn't have given the prelude, the preamble, and people can interpret it for themselves. But that, you know, that's where the inspiration came from anyway. All right, here we go. Jimmy went home after the bingo, and it's all that he reads until he checks the post. You've won a car, you won a holiday. He don't believe a word they say until he reads the ghostly words that tell him you changed me. More than you'll never know your history. Lessons give me all the drive I need to walk beyond the stars. What you gave me is passion in my cause. You've opened up my doors to walk on Mars. Voice that flag knows it's not a midlife crisis. Not by the bonnet scale. I'm flying off this earth for what it's worth, and you changed me more than you'll ever know your history. Lessons give me all that drive I need to walk beyond the stars. What you gave me is passion in my cause. You've opened up my doors to walk on Mars. Voice this flag of yours in this letter. Change me for the better. Now you know. You show the children that you teach. I don't dream of how to reach your goals. Without a little more. How strange you were in the dark as your animals filling up the ark. So come around as they take off from the ground. Come around, come around, as they take off from the ground. Come around, as they take off from the ground. Come around, as they take off from the ground. Come around, oh, let me tell you, you changed me. And you'll ever know your history. Lessons give me all trying I need. Walking on the stars, what you gave me. There's passion in my cause. You've opened up my doors. When you changed me, I changed. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. I'm glad
Thank you.
Actually, it was nice to paint that picture as I was listening to it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's yeah, you know, I don't know where the story came from really. I think maybe a passing conversation with someone who was a teacher about thank you letters, you know, that they'd received or something like that. So yes, it ran away with the idea lyrically, and then had that kind of, you know, that sort of 6/4 rhythm thing in the chorus, and then that was that. Oh man, I haven't played in so long. I need to practice big time. It'll do.
Sounds
it's
great.
Good enough for rock and roll. Thank you.
That's right, exactly. Good enough for rock and roll. As long as you're feeling it,
yeah.
Right? Too. It's interesting how you were telling a story about your guitar teacher and just how, you know, then unraveling kind of your story afterwards, and kind of neat to have you play that song when it's about a teacher who's and identified somebody's habits and styles and influence, and kind of go to so many different things, but it just reminded me of your own personal story with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think teachers have such massive influences, for better or for worse, on kids. You know, and just having a really good teacher in anything, it gives you such a big reason to engage with that subject. You know, it's about communicating an idea, and then that if someone's got a natural kind of interest for something, it just completely stokes that fire. So, you know, having a good teacher is really, really important. So yeah, I was lucky to have a great music teacher for sure.
Cool.
Definitely.
I love that. Yeah. I'd love to hear another one if you've got one more up your sleeve for us.
Yeah, I got one. Different guitar.
We got
it's got a cap on it. Yeah, this one is a song. It's called Sons, and it's written for my mum, who's unfortunately no longer with us. And she had a really difficult life, and I wrote this one for her, and she used to be my biggest fan, really, in a lot of ways, because, you know, I was very used to playing to rooms of about 1 people throughout my, well, you know, up until fairly recently as well. Well, my mum was still alive, and I used to play gigs in and around Brighton, and often not to many people at all. And you know, she would always be there right at the front, my #1 fan, and sometimes just playing to her. So this is always a special song for her. And it's got a kind of a bit of a country flavor to it as well. So again, I quite literally have not played this song for years. So you know, if there's hiccups, but I hope you forgive me. But I'll give it a go.
Real nice. That's what we're all about, the authenticity of it.
100%. All right, here's Sons. Staring at your picture where you're staring back at me. I'm locked inside your arms, inside this photo memory. You hold me like an angel, I'm a mirror for your smile. Your scars were on the inside, in the summer of your trial. I am your sun, shining on your darker days. I am your sun, shining on your darker days. The lights are on, mining for the golden blaze. I am your sun, mining for the golden days. When everything was fun. Well, I was just a canvas and a sponge to all I saw. I was just a diplomat appeasing down this war. You have lived a hard life, but it didn't crack your smile. Your scars are on the inside when your pain was in denial. I am your sun, shining on your darker days. I am your sun, shining on your darker days. The lights are on, mining for the golden blaze. I am your sun, mining for the golden days. Back in the olden days when everything was fun. Mother, you're my savior when I'm challenged by these fools. You taught me how to love and how to break all of their rules. Well, you have been a landslide and you have been a storm, and you have been the calm to keep a child safe and warm. I am your sun, shining on your darker days. I am your sun, shining on your darker days. The lights are on, mining for the golden blaze. I am your sun, mining for the golden days. In the olden days, back in those olden days, in those olden days, when everything was fun.
Love
Thank
the
you.
riff at the end. It's awesome. I loved that the story of that song. I could almost see like a movie in my head as I was listening to it. Just a scene in a movie that was just like soul touching, and I feel like that would be a great song for a movie about that whole situation. I think that would be really beautiful. Just putting it out there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, Linda was my mum, is my mum, and you could have written about 10 films about her. Trust me.
Well, there you go.
She was quite a character. Yeah, I think. Well, she was a powerful woman. Let's say that, and yeah, unfortunately, she spent a lot of time in and out of hospitals in her adult life. And let's take this story quickly because it always brings a smile to my face, as much as it's quite alarming as well. But it's pretty funny as far as I'm concerned. She's my hero, so she she spent some time in a mental hospital in Brighton, maybe about must have been to turn of the millennium, so around about 2001, something like that. And she was having a pretty bad spell, bless her. And anyway, I was in Brighton at the time and got a call on my phone, bearing in mind it's one of those old kind of crappy Nokia 3310s of the time, with the ones with Snake on.
Yeah.
This unknown number sort of pops up. I didn't usually answer them, but hello, hi Vern, Mum. Hi, yeah, I'm in France. So she had managed to sneak in a passport into the hospital with her, and had somehow broken through 2 electronically locked doors and escaped over the channel to France. Now,
Ambitious.
brilliant. And I mean, it was hilarious. In fact, it made the news, you know, on TV. Luckily she was all safe and it was all fine. But that, you know, that just goes to show the determination of the woman.
An adventurous soul.
Yeah. God bless her. Yeah, I miss her loads. She was absolutely hilarious.
Well, I'm sure you have tons of great stories about her and a beautiful song
Really
to
do.
go for it. So I love
Thank
that.
you.
Oh, well, it's been
Thank you.
great having you on here. I feel like we could just keep chatting for hours, but I do always like to wrap these episodes up with the question: if you had
Sure.
one message to share with the world, what would it be?
If I had one
message to share with the world, what would it be?
Oh, be yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself, because, you know, I think definitely I've been guilty of in the past of putting on airs and graces and or trying to sort of live up to something that you're not, usually to suit someone else's ideal of who you think they think you should be. But no, just there's no time for that. If you want to live in that kind of rut, I just don't think you'll really live your life to the full. So just be yourself and just do what you want to do, really. Life's too short to muck around. Just be yourself.
Yes, that is my favorite thing to hear and favorite thing to say, because it's so important. We weren't put here to be somebody else. We were here to be ourselves and live our passions and our truths. So well said. I love that advice. And I love all your stories and your music and everything you've got going on. So I look forward to hearing the next future hit that you end up writing.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's the way you got to think about it. Yeah. So
we're putting it out today.
Yeah, and big congratulations on Game On, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I've been listening and watching avidly. So yeah, 10 out of 10 on that.
Have you learned the dance yet?
Well, I haven't mastered it. I've got my own take. It's got kind of a break dance thing going on, but I'll get there.
Do you?
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Vern, for joining us. I'll make sure we post links to where people can find you in the comments below, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you, Crystal. Take care. Bye.